This episode of Playing on a Budget is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the #1 source of games and gaming accessories, and by GatheringMagic.com, the #1 source of Magic the Gathering news and articles. Hi there, it's Kevin with GatheringMagic.com here with another episode of Playing on a Budget. This week we're going to be piloting a similar deck as a couple of weeks ago. But this one is going to be splashing the red instead of splashing the white to see if Ghor-Clan Rampager and Madcap Skills are better hookups to our Hexproof guys than like the Celestia Charm or going that route with white. Ethereal Armor, of course, is the trade-off for Madcap Skills, but you get a lot of cool little combat tricks and some especially powerful cards with this strategy. Being, of course, the Ghor-Clan Rampager +4/+4 and Trample hooked up with like even a Flesh Blood or an Armed and Dangerous can make short work of your opponent. But before we get over the deck tech, let's just go over the pricing. We're going to stick to our theme here, and we're going to start off with an event deck. And the event deck that we're going to start off with here is the Magic 2014 event deck. Rush of the Wild. There's still some available. Your local game store might have one, but Cool Stuff has this deal for $7 off right now. So it's a really great deal to get a cheap Stomping Grounds out of here and the Burning-Tree Emissaries that we need, as well as the 4 Ghor-Clan Rampagers. So if you are going to be building this deck, I definitely think you should pick it up, as it has a lot of the essentials. It even has some of the cards that you can use instead of cards in this deck, like the Rubble Belt Raiders. Seems like a very, very powerful card. As we'll look up some of these cards here in a second, but Rubble Belt Raiders has 3 Devotion on it, and our deck is the Devotion deck with Aspect of the Hydra. Again, I'll get over that in a bit. But again, it has like the Armed and Dangerous, has like cards like Wrecking Ogre, and again the Wild Beastmaster, and Slaughterhorn is a decent pick for the deck as well, and even a beater like Deadbridge Goliath is fine. So you could, if you initially just pick up this deck and then make some additions to it, that would be the way to go, as it would be the best bang for your buck. So definitely look into this deck. Again, $7 off is a great deal right now. $18 for you're basically getting, the Stomping Grounds go for about $11 right now, so you're getting the entire deck for $7. Anyway, so let's go over to the cart here. We're sitting around $91 with the rares. Boon Satyrs, $1.25. Bow of Nylea, $1.49. Mistcutter Hydra at $3. The only thing that really, again, it's the land. The land base is going to take about $60. So the deck without the lands, you don't have to have the Stomping Grounds. In fact, in this deck, you could easily cut the red, but then it just goes into like this mono green devotion list. But that's what we're trying red specifically to see if it is worth splashing in here. And again, I don't know if the Temple of Abandon is the right way to go for its mana confluence, but for budget restraints, we are going to go with the Temple of Abandon. And I don't know if that's going to end up really hurting us rather than just basic mountains. But I think Scry will be fine. It will get unnecessary lands off the top of our library. And of course, we can always play this first turn. It won't hurt us too badly. Or like third turn, we have a lot of 2-drops in the deck, and third turn we can actually pop down a Temple, and I don't think it will hurt us for later on. As our 3-drops, casting a 2-drop on turn 3 is fine, and a 3-drop on turn 4 doesn't seem like it'll be that much of a difference in the power than if you were to go the other route. So anyway, let's go back over to the deck tech. I'll look up the Rubble Belt for you here. Rubble Belt Raider, and it's this guy right here. Whenever a Rubble Belt Raider attacks, it gets +1/+1 counter on it for each attacking creature control. So it actually gets a +1/+1 counter for itself. I do like it a little bit over the Deadbridge Goliath, as it's going to get huge very quickly, especially since this deck does utilize a ton of creatures. So it's definitely an option. And again, there's a ton of options in the red-green archetype. Another card I thought about using was Xenagos, Fanatic of Xenagos, as it can be a 4/4 haster. My experience right now with Fanatic of Xenagos is they usually just tribute it 1, and then it's a 4/4 for 4, and then it just gets taken care of with like an Abrupt Decay or another card that like a Hero's Downfall or a Doomblade or something like that. So you never actually get to utilize it as, I mean, it does stick out though. 4/4 Trample is extremely powerful in this deck. You do want a deck with Elvish Mystic though if you're going to be going for Fanatic of Xenagos, and then I'd be more inclined to go kind of the Domri or the Corsair Crewfix route with Fanatic of Xenagos. And again, I think that we want all of our permanents really to have as much devotion as possible, because we are using Aspect of the Hydra, and Aspect of the Hydra is going to be one of our kill conditions. And once you start looking, Fnatic of Xenagos just doesn't really fit in a deck right now. I think it's going to be a powerful card post-rotation, but if you're going to go more of a mid-range route, you're going to be going into monsters, and then your 3-drop is pretty loaded with Domri and Corsair Crucifix. And if you're going to be going into like this sort of blitz-type strategy, it just doesn't quite feel right. In this strategy, we want as much green devotion as possible. And other strategies, it just seems a little unimpactful for what you're trying to do on turn 3. Anyway, another card you could definitely think about going is Xenagos, God of Revels. But with a land count of 20, I do not think that we can justify playing a 5-drop in here. We curve out at 3, and we have very, very little 3-drops in the deck. We have Ghor-Clan Rampagers are not 4-drops. You're hardly ever going to be casting them unless of Time of Desperation. And if it gets to that point, you're pretty far behind as it is. The best you're going to be able to hope for is a late game Ghor-Clan Rampager, and maybe, you know, get it hooked up to like a Boon Satyr or something. But that, I hope we avoid all scenarios like that from happening, and we just blitz our opponents out. Alrighty, so going down the list of cards, our 1-drop is going to be with Experiment 1 and Gladecover Scout. I think the Gladecover Scout gets the nod over Elvish Mystic, as well as gets the nod over the Dryad Militant, because it is a 1/1 hexproof. And if we go turn 1 Madcap Skill, or turn 1 Gladecover Scout into turn 2 Madcap Skills, and then turn 3 into like an Armed and Dangerous, that is pretty much going to be close to game within a couple of swings. And there's just so many decks that cannot deal with Gladecover Scout. With Grand Prix Chicago, it looked like people are migrating away from worrying about hexproof or the white-black devotion lists and focusing more on beating mono blue and RG monsters, as mono blue and RG monsters are making a comeback. And that makes Gladecover Scout that much better. If the decks were packing the heat with the Devour Fleshes and the other sack outlets, or like mass removal, then Gladecover Scout loses its the reason to really go hexproof. But since, like I said, now that they're going more ultimate price and Bile Blights and whatnot, we do want a hexproof threat. We do want to make them bring in the Devour Flesh, as the Devour Flesh is not nearly as good as like a Bile Blight. We want them to either go incredibly heavy on their removal, and then hopefully we can just keep pace with them by throwing creature, or we want them to put in the lackluster removal and then come in with a Gladecover Scout, Madcap Skills combination and win just like that. So anyway, so it's going to be, I think that Experiment 1 though is slightly better than Gladecover Scout, as it's going to get evolved very, very quickly in this deck. It gets evolved by Bassara Tower Archer, it gets evolved by Burning-Tree Emissary, Kalonian Tusker can actually get it to a 3/3, and then Boon Satyr can actually get it to a 4/4. Again, we'll mess around with it. It might actually be Gladecover Scout that's better than Experiment 1. We'll have to wait and see which one we like more. Again, this is going to be a devotion list, so Aspect of Hydra is going to be one of our best cards in this deck. Then again, the other combat tricks is we have the Flesh Bloods and we have the Armed and Dangerous. And then for the 2-drop slot, we have Kalonian Tusker, Burning-Tree Emissary, and Bassara Tower Archer. Again, the 2/1 hexproof gets the nod over the 3/2 other dual devotion guys. Swordwise Centaur, that's the card. And then at our 3-drop slot, we're gonna be going 2 Boon Satyrs, and then 3 Reverent Hunters, and then 1 Wild Beastmaster. Wild Beastmaster, of course, can be very, very lethal with a Madcap Skills or Aspect of Hydra. So I just wanted a 1-of in here to see how well it will perform. And then we have 4 Ghor-Clan Rampagers to finish off kind of our cantrip. So it's more like we're actually using 25 creatures, as Ghor-Clan Rampagers are the majority of the time going to be used for their Blood Rush. Now, we do have more creatures in our sideboard. We have Mistcutter Hydras to come against Mono Blue and Esper Control. We have Witchstalker to come in against probably the same. Witchstalker will come in against any deck that wants to destroy creatures, as Hexproof is huge, so this deck can morph over to a Hexproof. You know what? And I actually am I'm gonna go with my gut here, and I'm gonna actually put in the Experiment 1 or the Gladecover Scout over that last Experiment 1. And then we will be more of the hexproof route. So it'll be 7 1-drops, Experiment 1 or Gladecover Scout getting the nod over Experiment 1. So against the decks that have a lot of creature removal, we'll keep in the Boon Satyrs, we'll take out the Reverent Hunters and the Wild Beastmaster and bring in Witchstalker. And against the, we'll bring in another Boon Satyr too, and just kind of, Burning-Tree Emissary is fine because it can actually protect. So you can go first turn Gladecover Scout into turn 2 Burning-Tree Emissary Madcap Skills on the Gladecover, and then you have a way to protect your Gladecover from Devour Flesh. We have 2 more Rangers Guiles though that we'd actually bring in versus that Hexproof type strategy is as well. Any sort of like mono black or red deck that has lightning strikes in it, we're going to bring in the Rangers Guiles. Plummet is in here really for mono blue and mono black. I have one more Flesh Blood because it's just good against so many decks that if we do go the Hexproof route, this guy's coming in again. Kalonian Tuskers are completely coming out, and so this is our last slot that comes in. So against the against decks where we want to go Hexproof, this will come in, and then these will come out, and then depends on whether we want to go like Bow of Nylea or Mistcutters, or it'll be more Mistcutters if we are going against like an Esper control list. So, and maybe Plummets. If it's mono black, that will probably be the list that comes in, is Plummets, Witchstalkers, Boon Satyrs. That's why Rangers Guile's not that big of a deal. It's we morph over into a Hexproof route, and we'll be siding out all the things we'd want to be using Rangers Guile on to begin with. So anyway, that is going to be the game plan. I'm going to go ahead and save this up here, and we'll play some games here. This has been Kevin with GatheringMagic.com. Thanks for watching.